The Denver Broncos have just been handed an incredible opportunity. If they don't take advantage of it, what does that say? It could be more proof that the NFL hype machine and the sports media can sometimes get a little too carried away. It's also more evidence that the Broncos dodged a major bullet by not signing Stephon Diggs to that $70 million deal. There's a lot to break down here, so let's dive in. If you're new here, I'm a die-hard Broncos fan, and your support means a lot. If you're a Broncos fan, make sure to like and subscribe. It helps out a ton. Now let's talk about the latest opportunity. The New England Patriots just released their former captain and standout linebacker, Jawan Bentley. This guy's a game changer, a true leader both on and off the field. Bentley is coming off a torn pectoral, but he's only 28 years old, and when healthy, he's a force to be reckoned with. While the Broncos have already upgraded their linebacker core this season by bringing in Dre Greenlaw, the question still lingers in Broncos country. Can Alex Singleton stay healthy and perform at a high level? Even when healthy, is he really the best option to pair with Greenlaw? This is where Bentley could come into play. Bentley would fit perfectly within the mold of Sean Payton's system. Both Payton and Bentley come from the same coaching tree, drawing from Bill Belichick and Bill Parcells' philosophies. I reached out to a friend of mine who's a huge Patriots fan, and he told me that the release of Bentley shocked a lot of people given his talent. However, with the Patriots shifting their defensive style under new leadership with Mike Vrabel, they felt they were stacked at linebacker and could afford to move on. What makes Bentley so appealing? First, he's a downhill run stuffer, known for his ability to take on running backs and quarterbacks alike in the open field. For example, watch him stuff Dak Prescott on a quarterback sneak or lay a punishing hit on Jalen Hurts. Those are the types of plays that make Bentley stand out. His skill set isn't just limited to stopping the run, though. Bentley is also a solid presence in zone coverage, able to swat down passes and cover tight ends, making him versatile. He's got the kind of skill set that could bring an extra dimension to the Broncos' defense. Last season, the Broncos were rotating linebackers, and while it worked, it wasn't ideal. Players like Quan Alexander and Justin Stern had filled in, but there were gaps in the inside linebacker position. Now imagine a linebacker core that includes Dre Greenlaw and Jawan Bentley. That would be a massive upgrade, one that could take this defense to another level. If the Broncos decide to make a move for Bentley, it would show that they're serious about having a deep and reliable linebacker group. But if they stand pat and roll with the current roster, it could be a sign that Sean Payton has full confidence in Singleton to bounce back from his injury, or that Drew Sanders is ready to step up. Don't forget, there's also an undrafted free agent who could surprise us. Sean Payton made some surprising decisions this offseason, notably choosing Samaje Perine over Tim Patrick and several other players who were cut unexpectedly. One of those players was Lavelle Bailey, and remember, Payton was the only head coach who personally reached out to him during the draft. Not once, but twice, inviting him to come to Denver. So does Sean Payton feel comfortable with the current inside linebacker group, or would bringing in Jawan Bentley be a move worth considering? I mean, adding Bentley sounds pretty exciting. Though I've never actually been in a Bentley, it definitely sounds cool. Another interesting development that came up is how the Broncos made a notable statement by attending certain pro days while being noticeably absent from others. The NFL Combine this year didn't have the usual level of excitement, as many top prospects opted out of running or participating in certain drills. A lot of eyes were on the Combine for key performance metrics, like the 40-yard dash, but instead the Broncos decided to focus elsewhere. They sent their running back coach to watch Ashton Gentry's pro day, while other teams packed the Ohio State pro day. Despite all the hype surrounding Ohio State talent this year, the Broncos were notably absent without a GM or other key personnel in attendance. So, what does that say about their strategy? Is it a hint that they're not as interested in the top Ohio State prospects as others, or does it mean they're prioritizing different needs? Speaking of Ashton Gentry, his pro day performance was unreal. The guy has a physique that's hard to even describe, muscles you don't often see, and it's not just about how he looks. His on-field numbers are even more impressive. Last season, Gentry totaled 3,000 yards and 30 touchdowns in 14 games, carrying the ball 400 times. That's the kind of production that gets people talking about generational talent. Now, I've pushed back on that term in the past. We've heard it thrown around a lot, especially with players like Kyle Pitts, Trevor Lawrence, and Caleb Williams, but Gentry's performance might actually warrant it. Whether he's a generational talent or not, his body of work last season is absolutely wild, and now some are even saying he could be a top 5 pick in the draft. While that might seem rich for a running back, it's definitely possible. So what's next? The Broncos could either end up facing Gentry as an opponent, or if they want to make a move, they could try to bring him to Denver. It's going to be exciting to watch how this plays out. Also, just a few days ago, I mentioned how the Broncos might have dodged a bullet by not pursuing Stefon Diggs, considering his off-field issues. Now, Diggs has reassured the New England Patriots that he'll be good to go by week 1. But what's even more interesting is the story of Brandon Ayuk. Ayuk is 4 years younger than Diggs and suffered the same knee injury just 1 week before Diggs did, an ACL tear. The difference? Ayuk is 4 years younger and is already showing promising progress in his rehab. His doctor has expressed satisfaction with how the ACL reconstruction is going, which could be a big factor moving forward. Stefon Diggs has said that he'll be ready to go by week 1 of the season, but I think that's a huge stretch. ACL injuries, especially for explosive players, take time to recover from. If you're an offensive lineman, sure, you might be back sooner, but as we've seen with athletes like Jamal Murray, it's a different story for skill players. Diggs is 31 years old, and expecting him to be fully recovered and ready for the season opener is a bit of a pipe dream. When you're paying a player like Diggs $70 million with $26 million guaranteed, counting on him to be there from the start to elevate a young quarterback like Drake May, well, that's a risky proposition. The Broncos definitely dodged a bullet there, especially when you look at how Brandon Ayuk, who's 4 years younger, is progressing in his rehab. With one of the top rehab doctors in the country overseeing Ayuk's recovery, it's clear the Broncos are in a better position long term. Now let's talk about something that isn't directly related to the NFL, but still has a connection to the sports world. There are certain narratives pushed by the media that often don't hold up under scrutiny. For example, all the talking heads on ESPN were almost certain that Coach Prime, Deion Sanders, was going to be coaching either the Dallas Cowboys or the Las Vegas Raiders. Well, guess what? Coach Prime just signed a 5-year deal to stay with the Colorado Buffaloes. There were plenty of people who actually covered CU and followed the team closely, like RK at DNVR, who knew this was never going to happen. The media, however, loves to put these narratives out there without really doing their homework. When you actually take the time to study a team and their moves, you can see the bigger picture. Sometimes it's easy to get caught up in the hype, but it's important to look at things objectively. As we move into the offseason and predictions start rolling in, we're seeing a narrative forming around the Broncos. According to some analysts, they're predicted to finish as the 3rd best team in the AFC West next year, just a game behind the Chargers, and potentially miss the playoffs. That's an interesting take, but given all the changes and upgrades the Broncos have made, we'll have to wait and see how it all shakes out. Looking at ESPN's over-under predictions, they have the Broncos missing the playoffs. But when you look at the actual facts, that prediction doesn't hold up. The Broncos were just a missed field goal away from being tied at halftime in the playoffs with the Buffalo Bills. And let's not forget that Bo Nix and Troy Franklin connected at the end of the year in the playoffs, setting up a big step forward for players like Franklin, Marvin Mims, and Devin V. These guys are ready to make an impact. Defensively, the Broncos were already the 3rd best defense in the league last season, even with players like Justin Sternad and Quan Alexander stepping in, guys who weren't even on the radar at the start of the year. Now, they've upgraded those key positions by adding 2 All-Pros, Pro Bowlers, and players who have been to the Super Bowl, so the defense is only going to get better. On offense, the only real missing piece was a dynamic tight end, and Sean Payton wasted no time going out and getting one of the best in the league, Evan Engram. With these upgrades across the board, I'm really excited about what's to come next year. Playoffs are definitely within reach. One piece of data that really excites me is a stat shared by Advanced Analytics, showing that Courtland Sutton has one of the highest passer ratings when he's in man coverage. And with the Broncos now having a solid tight end who will draw zone coverage, Sutton is going to get a lot more opportunities to shine. It's going to be a huge advantage for the offense. I also came across this graphic from Fox Sports, which ranked the best draft picks at each position over the past 10 years. The best ever pick at number 9 ? Patrick Surtain II. I have a strong feeling that the Broncos' pick at number 12 is going to go down in history as one of the best picks ever at that position. And when the Broncos make their pick at number 20, I believe we're going to see that player on a graphic like this in the future. The future is incredibly bright for your Denver Broncos. Get ready. Next year, we're going to make a deep playoff run. Mark your calendars for the end of January and early February because Broncos country is going to be celebrating together. There's so much to be excited about, and I truly believe the best is yet to come.